Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition, one half Widgets and Wonders, one half GMG review. Today I'm taking a look at Terrain Essentials, a book about making Wargames Terrain for my friends Mel Bose, the Terrain Tutor, and Dave Taylor Miniatures. And this kind of conveniently fit into two categories, so it just felt like this is a good format to look at the book. It's also a good candidate for Widgets and Wonders, because this is an all like Mel's brain collection of advice, wisdom, and sort of like tutorials for making your own Wargames Terrain. A skill that's starting to become forgotten as more and more companies move towards selling you terrain. You know, like you've got AMG selling like just plastic kits now for all the terrain for the Marvel Superheroes game. Great cardstock terrain from Corvus Belli. And GW selling terrain kits for pretty much everything. There are some classic model making skills that used to kind of get handed down like organically. You know, you'd learn this from the old codger that made model train sets, or you know, the military modeler, scale model enthusiast, and they're kind of being lost. So this is a really cool book. Mel crowdfunded this. You might remember I did an interview with him and Dave just sitting in a hotel room at Adepticon, I think 2019, when this was first like being planned. It was crowdfunded, and then here we are, I think 2 years later now, and it's actually for sale. So I think all the Kickstarters have been delivered. There was a cool little promo mini too that they made, a Mel mini, Monster Fight Club did. It's kind of hard to see maybe here on the camera. But there's a Mel with his either his head or his crazy like horned, I think it's like a sheep head miniature Monster Fight Club made as a thank you for people being patient. And this comes packed. It is available for sale from a bunch of sources. I'll link it all below so you can check it out. For sale right now. I think that Kickstarter's been delivered to everybody. So it comes packed with a bunch of really cool stuff, and I will actually show some like handy terrain stuff that it comes with. So you get a neat like Terrain Color Reference chart with some of his advice, like desaturating colors with grays. So adding grays to colors is a great way to both extend the color that you have and also to make it look a little more real life by taking out some of the saturation in a color. How to do like different colors for water, different colors for rocks, for earth and desert, for wood, for man-made things, and for effects. And so this is just like a, hey, if you have these colors on hand, painting terrain is kind of a snap. These are all great for different things and different advice for doing that. Then there's this, which I loved. It's a poster of Mel's top 88 things in his brain to do, Mels Rules for terrain building. Number 1, paper mache does not work well with bubbly foam modes. Number 2, big hills sound great, but lots of little ones are better. When placing clump foliage, hide the flock-ups first, so hide all your mistakes. If in doubt, it's not dry. Number 5, that's a good one. Number 19, if you know you'll need more in the future, buy it now, like for instance, house paint. Number 31, there's no mistake that can't be fixed with battle damage. That's a great one. It's easier to thin it on the fly than to thicken it, so mix it thick when mixing custom colors. Number 58, always check that your IPA tin is closed before leaving the studio. Number 69, the longer the build will take, the longer you should playtest on paper first. Don't build it until you enjoy it when planning a set. Number 85, you may think you're prepared, but you don't have baby wipes, you're not. So that's for cleaning up resin and stuff like that. So just really handy, silly advice that comes from experience. So I liked that was included in the packaging. And then what we got here is the beautiful hardcover book, which Dave sent along for free as just a thank you for doing the interview and supporting them in the beginning, and also so that you guys could check it out. So we got a book about making wargame terrain, and it is 192 pages. This is arts and crafts sort of thing, and it's divided into different sections that I think are really useful. So you got planning, the whatchamacallit, so like all the things you need to do or to have, like your tools of the trade. Practicals, how to do like simple things, boards and bases, groundwork, grass work, rocks and hills, trees and bushes, water and snow, and building kits. And then some final thoughts at the end. And so what you've got here is sort of a menu from like the beginning of like how you do things to very specific like, items and things you might add to your wargame collection. And what I love about this, it's all very, like anyone's wargame collection needs trees. Everyone's wargame collection needs water. It needs rocks and hills. It needs like grass, and it needs like other various sort of like items that are kind of generic to almost any system and setting. And then it needs this bit of advice at the beginning, which is all the planning stuff. So great advice on like terrain density. So if you can fill a quarter of a table when you spread it out, it typically looks pretty good. Drawing things out in the beginning, and like for instance, putting guys down. I like that. I love that advice. Like when you play test your terrain to see if you like it or not. Because for a lot of people, obviously Mel makes terrain all the time, but you kind of want to make a set that matches the theme of what you're doing, and then forget about it and just be done and like never do it again. Obviously brands may vary for certain things, like for instance, for things like colors and artist colors and stuff, but the general idea is here for all of these things. Making drawing racks, that's a great idea. Holding things off the ground. Different appliers, builders, smears, cutters, and then specialist tools, how to use paints, oils, different kinds of glues. This is just, oh, there it is, my favorite right there. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. Look at that guy hiding in the back. These are all fantastic bits of knowledge. And then of course your building materials themselves. Different types of boards. Like this is all hugely useful information for people just starting out, and stuff that you typically learn by buying stuff, then not using it because you hate it, or asking questions and getting advice from people who've done it before. Natural materials, and then practical. So common methods and techniques, things like cutting foam, having a good work area, mixing things up. And then keep going happy and healthy. The following is not medical advice, but it's just like how to be like sort of like long-term in your thinking. If you're gonna do this as a hobby, then how to be healthy while you do it, which is great. Sticking things together, using clamps, slapping things on, painting. Things like Mod Podge, extruded foam, that's great. And how you can use rollers on foam, which is fantastic as well. If you haven't tried that, it's fantastic. Using cutters, boards and bases. And then as we go forward, we get into like the sort of the actual, this is a great one, fighting the warp, how to keep things from warping, cutting CDs and sticking them on the bottoms, storing things practically, making things modular. And like I said, as we go forward now, getting into like specifics, like making bases, making ground sets, painting those things. Colors in theory, how to use colors. Different types of flock, adding flock to things to give them detail. Garnishing, so adding little tufts afterwards, and that's how you can have something that was flat in the beginning, end up looking like that. Adding different levels, making your own flock, making different types of rocks, hills. I love this stuff because this is classic, like this right here, there you go, a step-by-step. A simple starter hill. This is a great, like anybody could make this like at home with just some styrofoam. So that's all packing foam, you can cut it up, texture it, glue it, throw down the grit basically, throw down the house paint, and then you apply the different techniques from the beginning to get that look at the end. These are all great projects for people who are just starting out. I love this one, stacking cardboard to make rocks. This is actually a lot more durable than doing things like using natural things like bark, although bark is also a great cheat and very fast, but stacking foam is a handy way of doing that, and then texturing it. Posh foam, I like how he calls it posh foam. It's just foam that you've cut the edges of to make it look like rocks. Up in your rock game to something even bigger. Trees and hedges. This is all very handy for making your own trees. Everything from using armatures to using foam or cork to make hedges, which is really handy. I like that, using a piece of scrub brush. It's nice and durable and flexible. Painting bark. Armatures, making your own armatures, so making twisty armatures, which is handy. Using twist ties. And then painting them up, or using wire. That's a classic right there, using floral wire. You can buy that at any DIY store. And you can make all kinds of crazy trees out of very simple stuff. Ponds and rivers, working with resin, which can be crazy, making industrial style stuff. And you may notice Mel's mostly working with natural stuff here. I think that was a really important thing for this book, is because you're focusing this book on the terrain that is used the most in wargaming and can be applied to almost any game system. So this is really handy. And then some specific stuff, so like doing winter scenes, doing buildings. I love this, the starter building. So doing a starter shack. That shack right there could be on almost any like Warhammer table for like the last 30 years. I love that, for everything from the shingles. People asked how I made the shacks that I used in the Lasting Tales videos. I did that. This would show you how to do it exactly. I've been making houses like that since I was a teenager, so it's just kind of muscle memory for me, but you can get a great professional looking building out of some really simple materials. Cereal packet. I love that he uses Lego to hold his corners there and tape. Like all that stuff when you if you wash glue over top of it afterwards, it's gonna stay forever. And people don't think that they can make really interesting, neat, sort of like finished looking products like this from household materials, but you definitely can. Making a yurt, that's so cool. Or like a sort of like a hut. Using balsa woods. I love that, using shag for your thatching. That's classic, and then you can paint it. Right, because then you paint it down afterwards, and look at that. You get this awesome thatching just by covering it in glue and letting it dry. Then you can paint it with an airbrush or paint it by hand, and you get some great Mordheim style buildings. So cool. Making industrial style stuff, so some more like classic second edition style sort of 40K terrain. Weathering it. Working with other kits. So this is the working with like hardboards. This is working with like a pre-primed or unprimed MDF kit. Working with plastic terrain, like GW plastic terrain. Working with cardboard terrain. This is all great advice right here, especially the marker thing on the tip. You guys have seen me do that before for finishing cardstock terrain. And then some final thoughts by Dave about Mel's book. And there it is, almost like an encyclopedia of wargame terrain making knowledge. Now there have been some great books like this. They are sadly long out of production. I covet my old red and yellow How to Make Wargames terrain books from GW that are now ancient. I mean, they're from the 90s, and for most people getting started in the hobby who would really need that advice and couldn't learn it somewhere else, this is a fantastic, incredibly thorough, not game specific update to that. That I think it would be great in anybody's collection. So I'm gonna link all of the places you can get this below. But great job to Mel and Dave. This is a truly inspirational piece of like hobby knowledge. There's no fat on it. It's all useful, great advice. It comes with some really useful accessories and stuff like that. And if you're interested in making your own wargame terrain, but you don't know where to get started, this should be the one-stop shop for gaining all that knowledge. And of course, his YouTube channel can supplement you from then on. Well, you can watch him actually do it in real life. So this is more the tell. He does the show online, and then you can take it and have a go, I guess. And that is my GMG review / Widgets and Wonders on Terrain Essentials, a book about making wargame terrain. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you for more of this in the future. Till then, I'm Ash. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below so you get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Death Ray Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.